at it, bro. I'm joking. I'm joking.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Scott's Scary Dad Show. Billy has unexpectedly left my side. Hey, he's back. He's got a beer. Now
I needed to grab a beer. Sorry about that. But hey, it's Comicpalooza recap, so it's kind of more your show than mine at this point. But
I think you actually spent more time with this show than me, so we could both discuss it, of course. But Comicpalooza 10 is gone, done. Successful con for the most part.
Met quite a few cool people there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was my first time ever being on a panel, so that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
Did podcasting tips and tricks with Chris and Amy, my friends from Austin, who are in Dudes of Beer podcast and Yes But Why podcast, and
who are also members of the HC Universal Podcast Network.
That's the ones. And we sat down and Chris did a really kick-ass job of like setting up essentially what is a syllabus for how to do a podcast, from like branding your social media, getting everything to cross-link, to your logo, to your descriptions, all of that stuff. He's been working with that whole Google algorithm, trying to get things, on the internet to work in your favor for a while. And he's finally kind of, I guess, figured it out.
Right.
And so he's sharing that with other folks, which is really neat.
And there's one thing about Comicpalooza that people, if you haven't been there, you may not realize. Even if you have been there, you may not realize, is that Comicpalooza has a lot of attendee-driven panels. They actually put out a call for panels just to the public. You submit what panel you want to do. If you get accepted, cool, come on in, let's do a panel. So there was a plethora of varieties of panels, from everything from podcasting to air guitar to I think there was a magician that did a panel. There were just tons of panels to take in. Anything you might be into, somebody did a panel on.
And that's pretty awesome too.
There were writer panels. There were just all kinds of stuff. Lisa Vasquez had a panel.
Mm-hmm.
There were just tons of panels out there.
Well, our room filled up like right at the very last moment. It was kind of crazy because we were sitting there and there was nobody in the room. Then like this couple came and sat down, and then this other guy came in, and then like at 2 minutes till, like everybody just flowed in and every seat was full. It was pretty neat.
That's awesome.
And my portion of the panel was kind of finding your niche, so after you've got kind of your stuff together, what are you going to talk about? Like, what are you doing a podcast for? Like, what's the point? And then when you go from there, coming up with so of course, we're a horror podcast and that's what our niche is. So I explained the ins and the outs of running a horror podcast and how it's pretty evergreen content. There's thousands of old movies, and there's movies coming out, and then there's Halloween, and then there's the industry, and everything in between. So it was really good. We made quite a few friends and fans. People were coming up saying, "Hey, you got a new listener now," so it's pretty neat.
That's awesome.
And we were actually fortunate too. I was on the schedule for the live podcast down in the booth on the floor, and when I went over there once again, there was nobody in the area, but the guys before us were finishing up, and we're like, "Hey, you want to just be on our show?" And they're like, "Sure." So I sat down with Chris and Amy, and then the guys from the name of their podcast is I Am Geek, and then another one called Gentlemen with No Class. And then Jay Mazer and Jessica Rainey were walking by, and they hey, come sit in and chat. So talked about Comicpalooza and fandom and just general the universe of comics and toys and games, right, and that. So I still got to get that one wrapped up and edit it out and cut out the awkward silences and stuff. But that'll be coming here in the next couple weeks. It'll be a regular episode with old and new business and titles and everything.
And we'll get a little bit deeper into exactly what went on Comicpalooza. But just for those that are wondering, Comicpalooza, with the panels, they have more programming than any other convention in Texas. It is definitely the largest as far as that goes. And on the floor itself, where the live podcast was, that's where you have your vendors, your artists, and everything else. And there were a ton to take in. It's a convention that takes more than a day to get through everything, for sure.
Yeah, I saw it was really kind of neat. The line was just entirely too long for everything I had going on, but Scotty Young, rather than holding up his line for all day, he'd roll dice
for sketches.
If you wanted anything other than a signature, he rolled dice, and if you rolled doubles, he'd give you your little your little sketch. Otherwise, and so it was a good filter because it was nothing but fair. There was no favorites. It was the price, whatever it was. I mean, he could have stood there making $200 or $300 a sketch all day, instead of giving away free signatures. But instead, he just kept it moving. And I saw a few of the sketches that he did because I was just kind of standing there watching him. He didn't skimp on them. Like he'd pencil them, and then he'd ink them, and then in some cases he'd actually add some color to them. It was pretty nice.
That is cool.
A lot of times convention sketches are very hurried because they got a long line.
Yeah.
It's nice, but it's not top of the line. But he was doing some pretty choice work. It was pretty cool.
Right.
Didn't get a chance to meet any celebrities. I was too busy running from one end to the other, trying to be where I needed to be, and then.
But you saw some of the folks that were out there. I mean, being that I work at the airport for Comicpalooza, I meet the majority of them. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there was Eric Estrada, Larry Wilcox, Jimmy Walker, Christian Ritter, Charlie Cox, Walton Goggins, Mike Chiklis. Tom Holland was the big celebrity draw for the weekend. They were just Orlando Jones, Brett Spiner, LeVar Burton. They were just tons of people to see.
How are those lines? Because I didn't even make it to
some
that
lines
side.
Are bad, some weren't so bad, but they all were moving pretty good. But one thing I can say is that all celebrities were giving a good experience to everybody. They were definitely. Orlando Jones, I heard, was absolutely fantastic with his fans.
Nice.
He did really well. But everybody, from what I understand, they had the same experiences.
Good. Yeah, Orlando Jones seems like a kind of guy that would
just have fun.
I mean, he's done serious work. He's not just a comedian, but he's a comedian. He's a writer. He writes comedy and he acts. So, to see somebody like that not be cool is pretty disappointing. So it's kind of nice.
I recently saw him in a movie I didn't realize he was in, but it's on Netflix. It's called Cirque du Freak, The Vampire's Assistant.
Oh yeah, it's
pretty cool. It's actually a neat movie if you get a chance to watch it. I think it's a PG-13 horror type flick. Okay. But it stars as the lead vampire. I cannot remember.
John C. Reilly?
Yes. Yes, that is the movie I speak of. And Orlando Jones is one of the freaks in the Freak Show.
Okay.
Yep.
Check that out.
It's a pretty cool movie. I went into it thinking it was going to suck. It was pretty good.
Because I think most recently he was playing Mr. Nancy in American Gods.
Yes. Yeah, that is correct.
So,
but he's been in tons of stuff from Evolution, The Replacements. He's been in a ton of movies.
He was in 7-Up commercials, remember?
Yeah. Well, he was in Office Space. Remember, he was the crack dealing magazine salesman.
Look, man, I don't know nothing. I'm just an out-of-work IT professional.
Yeah, that was a young Orlando Jones in that one. But yeah, so there were tons of people to meet. All the experiences I've had with the celebrities were pretty outstanding. One I got to give a shout out to is Walton Goggins, who horror fans will know him best as the bumbling sheriff's deputy in House of a Thousand Corpses. Which I talked to him about that role. I told him with that role, it's amazing how he did a Barney Fife character I could relate to that seemed as though that was really him. It's like his own persona was coming out in that character, and it was. He's a good old boy from Georgia. He really excellent guy. We talked about family and work and all kind of other things. He was cool to hang out with, and he's got another movie coming up pretty soon. He has 2 movies coming up in 2018. He's going to be an Ant-Man and the Wasp, even.
Sweet.
So yeah, his star is definitely rising.
Cool, definitely cool. Yeah, I wandered around. I saw a couple, different artists. Met these guys they are bringing back the horror host, and we're actually going to have them on pretty soon. But I didn't bring my business card. I forgot to write it down. But they are actually they're local. They're Houston based, and they're building. They've built a production set, and they've got the old school horror host. So they've got like, you know, I guess the main host guy. They got like the sexy vampire. Then they've got like a little animatronic puppet guy. That's one of them, and they're doing just the whole horror host comedy shtick, you know.
Right. And
they're going to try to bring it to TV, and you know they're building it right now. It's very cool to meet those guys, and told them for sure they, you know. And one thing that was really neat is walking around, meeting people, talking to them, and then they're like who are you with? And I pull them. They're like, Scary Dad. Oh yeah, I know you. I'm like, that's what I want to hear.
It's a good feeling.
That is awesome. So
yeah, if you miss Comicpalooza this year, don't fret. He'll be back next Memorial Day weekend. It's a great show to attend. It's Houston's Comic-Con.
Yeah.
So.
And it's huge.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it takes up the whole GRB.
Yeah.
So
it is a monstrous convention for sure.
It's funny because when I first got there, I walked in the door. So if you're not familiar with the George R. Brown Convention Center or convention centers in general, it is a large building that's probably one city block deep and like 8 city blocks long. And so I walk in one.
Yeah.
I walk in one side and I'm like, hey, I need to get my badge. Where am I supposed to be? And they're like, you need to go from where you are, like. So the convention center runs north-south. I'm on the far south side of it. They're like, "Oh, well, you need to go over to room A to
Hall A
to Hall A to pick up your thing." So I walk all the way down, like 8 city blocks, to the other end, and they're like, "No, this is where the other people check in. You need to be in D."
D. Okay.
And I'm like, "Oh, well, I came in at E, so 7 city blocks in the other direction." And by the time I actually got my badge and figured out where I needed to go...
You needed water.
Yeah. I needed to take a break. I needed one of those little hover round things because it was some walking done.
Yeah, there's a lot to see there for sure.
But anyway, that is kind of a preview of our Comicpalooza recap.
You know, just one quick thing also. It's cool to see all the horror-related stuff that was at Comicpalooza. Not necessarily guests, but you had Houston Zombie Walk, you had several of the haunted houses represented, you had a ton of horror authors, you had horror merchandise to buy. It was pretty neat to see all that. I saw a paranormal investigator there, just all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, there was a guy who was ghost tours, and there was paranormal. And yeah, it was very cool. It's also neat how like some of the Ren fairs, so Sherwood Forest Fair and Texas Renaissance Festival, were there, you know, hawking their their stuff. With Sherwood Forest Fair, I mentioned to my wife, she's like that sounds pretty neat, but I don't know how neat she thinks that I think that it is. First of all, they've got a sleepaway camp, like a all-inclusive sleepaway camp for kids, where you drop your kid off and then pick them up in a week, right? Where they learn archery, and I think they learn how to make their own bow.
Okay.
And then they have archery contests, and they learn how to make all kinds of cool stuff, and wood carving, and medieval games, and like music, and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, I want to go. And she's like, well, you can, because we also have adult summer camp. And it's like 21 and up, and it's like pretty much the same stuff. And I'm like, but they also have family summer camp too, so that's somewhere meet in the middle. But sounds like something I might want to be interested in. Sounds super cool, like right up my alley. So might have to check that out next year. Anyway, that's our little preview of our Comicpalooza recap. We got a full live podcast that I'm going to be posting up here in a week or so, and keep an eye out. We've got the Scary Dad's Haunted Halloween show, which we actually met quite a few vendors that we're probably going to bring in for this at Comicpalooza. So we made some friends. More on that coming up. I had to get through Frightmare and Comicpalooza
right?
Before I could really start enhancing my promotions.
Yeah, now we can start coasting with that.
Yeah. So if you're interested in vendor space, there's still some available. It's kind of going quick, and I haven't been advertising. So if you're sitting on that fence, hop on one side of it already. And with that, we're going to just go ahead and say can't wait for year 11 next year and Frightmare 14. And
yes.
Convention season's
that time of the year.
It's just a short year away.
Yep.
So with that, we're going to sign off now. You guys keep it scary.
Later.